Every single 501c3 nonprofit organization requires money to provide services. One of the primary ways in which 501c3 nonprofit organizations acquire the money that they need to operate is through grant writing. Unfortunately, there are many unscrupulous people who claim to be grant writers and really are not. This is what happened to Dr. John Williams. Dr. John Williams hired the wrong grant writer for his elder abuse prevention program. I'm Susan Woods, the founder of Susan Woods Nonprofit Consulting Services. I specialize in teaching people how to start, fund, and manage nonprofit organizations. This class is going to talk about the 12 steps to hiring a grant writer. Thank you so much for selecting this video message. Again, I'm Susan Woods. I started a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 2003 called Comprehensive Community-Based Solutions Incorporated. Underneath that 501c3 nonprofit organization, I offered two programs: Panorama Computer Learning Program and Emerging Leaders Mentorship Program for Black male youth. In 2013, we ended our Emerging Leaders Mentorship Program for Black male youth, took a 3-year break, and now this summer we're going to be offering a program called Future Men of Valor Development Program for Black male youth. I offer nonprofit consulting services. I complete the 501c3 application packet for private clients, and I also facilitate a broad range of classes for nonprofit leaders, either in person on the third Saturday of each month from 10 to 12, or through video messages like this one. I also occasionally teach webinars. I have 2 nonprofit certifications so far. I have a certificate of nonprofit management from Winthrop University, and I have a business essentials of nonprofit management from Wake Forest University. I'm a 3-time graduate of Winthrop University. I earned a bachelor's degree in business administration, a master of arts degree in business education, and a master of business administration degree. The services that I provide include instructor-led classes, like the classes that I teach on the third Saturday of each month, DVD nonprofit classes in which you can buy a class on DVD for $20, the private consulting services that I provide, and finally the 501c3 application completion services. These are just some of the services that I provide through Susan Woods Nonprofit Consulting Services. I respectfully request that you do not share this information with other people. It is protected by copyright law. Dr. John Williams. Let's talk about who he is. Dr. John Williams is a medical doctor. He's a urologist. He has 5 years of work experience in this role. His wife is a teacher and a minister. He has twin boys, 5 years old. He started a 501c3 nonprofit organization. He implemented the Elder Abuse Prevention Program underneath his 501c3 nonprofit organization. He created a program budget for the program. Unfortunately, he hired the wrong grant writer. He lost time, money, and credibility. But he's still determined to help the elderly. So let's talk about the problem. What's wrong? Dr. John Williams volunteered at a nursing home while in medical school. He noticed very disturbing instances of elder abuse. For example, The image of Mr. Adams being pushed when he had an accident before he could get to the restroom really bothered Dr. John Williams, and he cannot get that image out of his mind of seeing an elderly person literally pushed, physically pushed, because he could not get to the restroom in time. Really bothered Dr. John Williams. And for him, it wasn't enough to just report it, which he did, of course. But he realized, unfortunately, this is something that happens too frequently within nursing homes. So he wanted to do something about it. He couldn't just complete his internship and walk away. He wanted to do something to make a difference, which is why he started a nonprofit organization and then added the Elder Abuse Prevention Program underneath it. So what is the solution that he implemented specifically? Dr. John hired Susan Woods to complete his 501c3 application packet. He received his determination letter in 3 months. A determination letter is a letter from the Internal Revenue Service that tells an applicant that they have been approved to operate as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, providing the services that they requested to provide in the application packet. So this is his letter of approval, if you will. Dr. John implemented the Elder Abuse Prevention Program with the vision to eliminate elder abuse in nursing homes. Remember, a vision is a broad statement. This is a very broad statement, to eliminate elder abuse in nursing homes. Dr. John wrote a very thorough program budget that included program services expenses, operating expenses, and personnel expenses. The program budget also included projected revenues from grants, investments, and fundraisers. Now you may notice that I did not include the word projected when I talked about service expenses. Expenses are items that you list or items that you itemize that tells whomever is reading your budget how much money you specifically need. So there shouldn't be too many projections in the expenses part of a budget, because you have done your homework, you know how much it's going to cost to offer your program services. For example, in this case, Dr. John is probably going to offer some training classes for people who work at nursing homes. So that's a service expense. So he should know how much it will cost to offer the training classes, such as how much it's going to cost to rent a space, how much it's going to cost to provide the supplies for the class, how much it's going to cost to print the books for the class, how much it's going to cost to provide refreshments if you have refreshments for the class. Those are all program services expenses that he should be able to determine based on research. So expenses should be exact. They should not be projected. That includes operating. That includes personal expenses. Now the revenues must be projected unless you already have someone who has promised to cover your expenses. Revenues are projected, and they normally fall into 3 categories: grants, investments, and fundraisers. You have to project how much money you are going to get from grants, from investments, and in fundraisers to cover the expenses that you have outlined or itemized in your budget. So Dr. John has already done those 2 things. He's already listed his expenses and his projected revenues in his program budget. The board of directors approved the program budget, because once you create a program budget, you have to present it to your board of directors, and they have to approve the budget for you to go ahead and then offer your services or start the process to raising money to cover the expenses to offer the services. So let's talk about how Dr. John hired the wrong grant writer. Dr. John hired a grant writer that was referred to him by a friend. The friend knew that he needed a grant writer to raise the money or to write grants in order to raise money for his nonprofit organization. So his friend referred someone who he had heard was a grant writer. Unfortunately, Dr. John did not interview the person for the job. Dr. John paid the grant writer $50 per hour to write grants for the Elder Abuse Prevention Program. He did not really provide a job description for this person to follow. He did not provide a quota on the number of hours that he would pay for them to work on the grant proposals per day. He did not stipulate any type of requirement of proof that they were actually working on the grant proposals during the hours in which he was charged for their services. So that was a mistake to pay someone $50 an hour and not have strict guidelines in which they were to follow. After 6 months and thousands of dollars wasted, no grant money was raised for the Elder Abuse Prevention Program. Dr. John lost time, money, and credibility in the community. He lost time because 6 months have gone by and no money has come in from a grant funder at all. He lost money because he paid thousands of dollars to this person to write grant proposals. And then he's been talking about his Elder Abuse Prevention Program that he was going to launch in the next few months. And nobody has heard anything about it because he has not raised the money to meet the budget yet. So he's a little discouraged at this point. Nevertheless, he was determined to implement the Elder Abuse Prevention Program. So what did he do? So he called Susan Woods for advice, and she shared the 12 steps to hiring grant writers with him. The 12 steps to hiring grant writers. These are the steps that Dr. John Williams implemented in his process to hiring grant writers for his Elder Abuse Prevention Program. So let's talk about those steps. 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Step 1. Start early. Retain a grant writer before you need one. Many requests for proposals, or RFPs, which are also known as grant applications, are released with only a 30-day notice, and it can take months to select a grant writer. So start early. Start now. Even if you don't have an official program that you're getting ready to launch, go ahead and start now looking for a grant writer that would be the perfect person to write grants for your program. A request for proposal is a grant application that funders or foundations and other organizations announce. They announce it to the world that we have grant money available. So we are requesting proposals, requests for proposals. We are making requests for proposals for you to send in grant proposals for us to review and determine whether or not we will provide grant funding for your organization. Those requests for proposals are normally submitted with only a 30-day notice. So you don't have time to hire a grant writer in 30 days before the proposal or before the request for the proposal has closed, because requests for proposals don't remain open indefinitely. They are announced And in the announcement, a deadline is given that must be used in order to submit the grant proposals, or that must be met in order to submit the grant proposal in time. So the first step of the 12 steps is start early. Start early looking for a grant writer. Step number 2, do your homework. Learn as much as possible about their experience and their methods. Now, in order to do your homework, you have to know how to do your homework. So you have to know what things to look for in a grant writer. That's what the homework entails. You learning as much as possible about their experience and methods so that when you talk to them, you would know what questions to ask them about their experience and about their methods to writing grant proposals. Request a resume. Seek relevant experience writing the types of grants that support your nonprofit vision. So ask them to show you evidence that they do have the experience of writing the types of grants that support your nonprofit organization. Do they write federal government grants? Do they write foundation grants? Do they write corporate grants? If so, what types of grants have they written in the past? For what types of organizations? Are the organizations similar to your elder abuse prevention program? So those are the first 3 steps of hiring grant writers. And this information comes from grantexperts.com. You can follow the link that I have here in the source on this page in order to see this information. Let's talk about the next 3 steps. Step 4, review their educational background. What type of educational credentials have they earned to qualify as a grant writer? Now, this does not mean that they must have a certain degree or that they have to have degrees. They could have gone to school to learn or to earn certifications in grant writing. Not official 4-year degrees or not official 2-year degrees, but they could have just gone to several community colleges that offer adult education programs to attend a grant writing class and to earn certification. So you want to find out what type of educational background they have that qualify them as a grant writer. Number 5, request the success rate. Request a list of grant proposals they have written and indicate which were funded. So you want to ask them to give you a full listing of the grant proposals they have written in the past, and you want beside each one of those grant proposals whether or not, yes or no, the grant was funded. And out of all of the grant proposals they have written, you are looking for an 85% approval rating of their grants, at least. Asking for this information allows you to do 2 things. It allows you to determine how many grant proposals they have written over a period of time, and then out of that number, how many were approved for funding. That's important because sometimes people can tell you, I have a 100% approval rating. Well, that's fantastic, but what if they've only written 1 grant? So that really doesn't give you a good determination of whether or not that is going to be something that's consistent. So request a success rate. Number 6, examine 2 recent grant proposals. Request to see a copy of the 2 most recent funded grant proposals and the award letter. Confirm that they wrote the grant proposal independently. Now, this is a trick that some grant writers use to get over on you, for lack of a better way to say it. So you want to request to see 2 most recent funded grant proposals, let's say in the last couple of years. In funded meaning they have received the funding that you requested, or at least a part of it. Every time a grant proposal is funded or approved for financial investment, you will receive an award letter. So every grant writer that received funding for a grant proposal they have submitted will receive an award letter to show the amount of money that was awarded for that particular grant proposal. Everyone. If they don't have an award letter in hand, they should have an award email. They should have evidence that grants were funded or grant proposals were funded to show you. And then once they show you the award letter, you want to confirm that they wrote the grant proposal independently. Because sometimes grant writers are a part of a grant writing team with different people on the team completing different tasks to complete the grant proposal or to write the grant proposal. You want to make sure that the person that you're talking to actually wrote the grant proposal all by themselves. And that way you can have a fair determination of their qualifications. So those are steps 4, 5, and 6 of the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Okay, now let's talk about steps 7, 8, and 9 of the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Step 7, request references. Request references from at least 3 recent clients whose grant proposals were funded. Now, if you are a bona fide grant writer, that should be very easy to provide. References should be very easy to provide. As a matter of fact, grant writers should be enthusiastic about providing references to prove that they are able to do the job that you are potentially planning to hire them to do. So request references. 8, meet with the grant writer. That's right. If possible, meet with the grant writer in person to assess their enthusiasm and their personality. Nowadays, it shouldn't be a problem to meet with a grant writer in person. You might not be in the physical location, but you can certainly meet with them. We have opportunities and ways in which we can meet with people in person. You can Skype, you can do FaceTime, you can do all sorts of things to meet with people because you want to be able to study their body language, study their nonverbal cues. You want someone who enjoys writing grant proposals, someone who is enthusiastic about your program and the services that you're planning to provide, and someone with a good personality. So meet with them. If you can meet with them physically, that's even better. And finally, ask about their fees. How much do they charge to write a grant proposal? Do they charge an hourly rate? If so, what is it? Is it dependent upon the complexity of the request for proposal? Talk about fees. Ask them to be transparent about their fees. Talk about how they assess their fees. This is very important. So these are steps 7, 8, and 9 of the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Now let's talk about steps 10, 11, and 12 of the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Step number 10. Ask the grant writer if they have time to write your grant proposal. Can the grant writer focus on writing your grant proposal by the deadline? This is a very important question to ask because some grant writers write several grants simultaneously for different organizations. You want to make sure that they have the time available to write your grant proposal. So just ask them, how many hours do you think you would allocate to writing my grant proposal to meet the deadline of this request for proposal? That answer is dependent upon the complexity of the grant proposal. For example, if your grant writer is responding to a federal government request for proposal or RFP, then they should indicate a very long period of time to write that grant proposal because federal government RFPs require very complex, in most instances, very complex grant applications. So it takes longer to write a federal grant proposal than it does for a foundational grant proposal, especially a foundational grant proposal that is online. So those factors weigh into how long it takes for them to write the grant proposal and if they have time. Now, also find out what other things in their lives will, in the grant writer's lives, will occupy their time. For example, do they have children? Do they have a spouse? Do they have to care for their parents? Do they have another job? Some people are grant writers as part-time jobs. We want to know how much time they have available to write your grant proposal and meet the deadline, because the last thing you want to happen is this. You don't want to pay someone to write your grant proposal and then they miss the deadline to submit it. That's money wasted. Step number 11. Ask the grant writer if they locate the request for proposals. Ask them how they locate and how they respond to request for proposal requirements or RFP requirements. This is a very important step, because in order to write a grant proposal, you first have to locate a request for a proposal that is compatible to the type of services you want to offer. In the case of Dr. John Williams, he needs grant money to operate his program to eliminate elder abuse, to operate his elder abuse prevention program. Therefore, someone must locate requests for proposals that provide money for the type of services he will offer through his elder abuse prevention program. This is a very time-consuming step because it requires extensive research. You have to go to different sites, different locations, in order to find compatible requests for proposals before you can write a grant. This is similar to a person looking for a job. Your resume determines the type of skills you have, right? Determines the types of jobs that you are qualified to get, right? In order to get a job, however, you have to locate job vacancies for which you are qualified. That takes time and research to do that. But once you provide or once you locate a job vacancy that has the description in which you are qualified to meet, then that's a viable option for you to pursue. So then you submit your resume in response to that job description. That's the same concept here. The grant writer should know what the elder abuse prevention program is all about. And if they do locate requests for proposals, they know to only look for requests for proposals that provide money for this type of service. And once they locate the request for proposal, then they will download that request for proposal and print it, and then customize a grant proposal to meet the qualifications or the requirements listed in the request for a proposal. Just like you would customize your resume to meet a job description, they will customize the grant proposal to meet the requirements of the request for a proposal. This is a very, very long research-based process. Some grant writers do not perform step 11. So the question becomes, who will perform step 11, because it must be performed in order to write a grant proposal. Some organizations hire request for proposal research specialists, and that's their job. Their job is to compatible grant locate compatible requests for proposals to submit over to grant writers in order for them to write grants to meet the requirements in the RFP. So as you can see, I've spent several minutes talking about this step, but it's important for you to understand who's going to do this, who's going to locate requests for proposals, because you cannot write a grant without it. You can't just arbitrarily write grant proposals and send them out. It does not work that way. I can't arbitrarily just write a basic grant proposal and send it off to Bank of America expecting a response. I will have to go to the Bank of America website, locate the RFP, download the RFP, read it, and make sure that what I'm offering is compatible with what they want to pay for. Because that's what an RFP explains. What are we paying for? Well, if Bank of America RFP is paying for a physical fitness program for youth, then there's no need for me to write a grant proposal for an elder abuse prevention program. Okay, enough of that. Step 12, request a synopsis. Ask the grant writer to provide a synopsis to explain the grant writing process end to end. You just want a brief written statement from the potential grant writer for your organization that states their process from beginning to end. I would even ask them to maybe provide a diagram or some type of flow chart for you to see their process in writing. Those are the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Steps 10, 11, and 12 to hiring grant writers are here. The 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Okay, let's summarize. Let's just review the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Step number 1, start early. Retain a grant writer before you need one. Step 2, do your homework. Learn about the relevant experience the grant writers have. Step 3, request a resume. Take a look at their resume to make sure you match your resume to the requirements that you have for grant writers. Step 4, review their educational credentials. Confirm the relevance of the educational credentials to what you need them to do. Step 5, request a success rate. What percentage of the grants that they have written have been actually funded? Step 6, examine 2 recent grant proposals and award letters. Ask them to show you the grant proposals they have written and the award letters that they received from the grant proposals, the most recent 2. Step 7, request references. Talk to other clients about their work ethic and how they met their expectations. Step 8, meet with the grant writer. You want to be able to meet with the person that you're thinking about hiring as your grant writer so that you can observe nonverbal cues. Even if you have to meet with them over a social media platform like Skype. Step 9, ask about fees. Ask them to explain their fee strategy. Do they charge by the hour? Do they work on a commission basis? What type of fee strategy do they use? Step 10, confirm their availability. Make sure the grant writer has the time required to write grants for you. Number 11, ask the grant writer if they locate the request for proposals of RFPs. That means, do they look for compatible requests for proposals in order to write grants for you? And if so, is the research included in their fees? In the last step 12, request a synopsis. Ask the grant writer to explain their process in an easy to follow flowchart format so that you can see their process to writing grant proposals. So those are the 12 steps to hiring grant writers. Thank you very much for reviewing this video message. This short video defined the 12 steps to hiring grant writers for nonprofit organizations, and that's primarily who I'm talking about here, not for-profit businesses or sole proprietorships or anything like that. This information is focused on the nonprofit sector, specifically 501c3 nonprofit organizations. I provide free phone consultations if you want to talk about how to start a 501c3. The phone consultations are held in the evenings, Monday through Thursdays from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I use that 1 hour phone consultation to listen to you talk about your vision for a nonprofit organization and how I might be able to help you to receive the 501c3 designation. I offer free Saturday classes on the third Saturday of each month from 10 until 12 at local libraries. During the months of January through October, I do not offer these classes in December or November due to the holidays. I provide DVD nonprofit classes. If you want to buy a class on DVD for $20, you can do so on my website at hiresusanwoods.com. I have a YouTube channel called Susan Woods Nonprofit Consulting Services, in which I upload previews of classes and also free classes that you can download a video. I have a Facebook page with the same name, Susan Woods Nonprofit Consulting Services, and you can follow me on Facebook. I invite you to do that. I provide updates periodically on Facebook to share different nonprofit information. If you have any questions, you can call me directly at 704-968-2769. That's 704-968-2769. Thank you so much again for watching this video message entitled 12 Steps to Hiring Grant Writers. I hope it is beneficial to you, and I hope that it helps you hire the right person for your nonprofit organization to write grants for you. Thank you. Have a good day.